This video is brought to you by audible.com. Hey everyone, this is Daniel from PhoneArena with a video comparison between the HTC One and the Sony Xperia Z, one of the main flagship competitors this season, so a direct comparison is warranted to help you choose. The HTC One flaunts novel ideas like the UltraPixel camera or the stereo speaker system here at the front, to which the Xperia Z responds with a thin and light waterproof body. So which one is for you? Watch our comparison to find out. The phones weigh about the same, but the one is shorter and narrower than the Xperia Z, which should help with better one-handed control. If its pretty aluminum chassis wasn't so slippery compared to the rubberized edges of Sony's phone that allow for a much better grip. Moreover, this rubbery feeling of the Xperia Z has a perfectly good reason to be there, as the phone is waterproof if you're looking for a rugged before pretty, and still thinner than the HTC One, despite the watertight body. HTC, however, has graced the one with this timeless precision-cut aluminum chassis that sticks out like a sore thumb in the sea of plastic Androids. Not only that, but we get two amplified stereo speakers at the front and also an air blaster integrated in the power lock button up top. This same button Sony has placed in the round metal form here on the right side, where it belongs, directly under your thumb, while we have to stretch each time with the HTC One to reach it here at the top. The overly thin volume rocker of the Z, however, is right smack in the middle of the right side, making it uncomfortable to feel and press somewhat compared to this jagged one-piece metal key of the HTC One here. Both handsets sport Full HD 1080 by 1920 pixels displays, with the HTC One having a slight edge in pixel density, as it sports a 4.7-inch panel compared to the 5-incher on the Xperia Z. The pixel densities, however, are more than you need and not the main advantage of HTC One's display before the screen on the Z. The colors and contrast on this 5-inch panel on the Xperia Z look much worse than on the HTC One. Even when looked at head-on, the Xperia Z exhibits washed out colors and pretty grayish blacks in comparison to the vibrant tones on the One. And on top of that, HTC's phone sports one of the best viewing angles we've seen on a mobile display. Thus, the screen on the HTC One excels in everything compared to the one in the Xperia Z, save for the all-important brightness category, where both phones are pretty close, with a slight advantage of the HTC One in terms of outdoor visibility. Now let us say a few words about our sponsor, audible.com. Audible is a leading audiobook service with a catalog of over 100,000 hit titles like The Hunger Games or 50 Shades of Grey, just to name a few. What's more, if you go to audiblepodcast.com/PhoneArena, you'll be able to download one free audiobook and listen to it anytime on any device. So if you want to get started with this beautiful service, just head over to audiblepodcast.com/PhoneArena. The phones run Android 4.1.2 and Sony has reworked the former Timescape UI to highlight the new social life app integration, merging your social networking activities with other info feeds. HTC, however, has introduced a similar feature called Blink Feed, which curates topics of your choosing for relevant news on the subject, and also integrates them seamlessly with your Facebook and Twitter updates, as well as calendar entries and reminders in this Flipboard style pattern. It has also completely redone the Sense 5.0 interface on the One, making it simpler and more minimalistic, still upholstering every menu and submenu, as you can see, for the most sophisticated and uniform looking manufacturer overlay out there. The One is run by the newest generation Snapdragon 600 quad-core processor clocked at 1.5 GHz, whereas the Sony Xperia Z sports Qualcomm's previous best quad-core, Snapdragon S4 Pro, at the same frequency, which easily explains why the One sports much higher in synthetic benchmarks. The phones, however, run Android and chew through apps with ease and have 2 GB of RAM for having many open at once, as long as it's up to 9 in the case of HTC, which again restricts the number of apps that can run simultaneously from 7 to 9 this time. But still we have this limiting 3x3 grid accessible when you double tap the home key with up to 9 running apps. HTC One finished and it got 12,307 points on Quadrant, whereas we're getting 7,986 on the Xperia Z. Sony starts you off with 16 gigs of internal memory, whereas HTC gives you 32 GB in the basic One version, but the Xperia Z has the significant advantage of offering a micro SD slot for easy storage expansion on the chip, which is protected by a tight rubber flap. Using browsers on such high-resolution displays is a joy, and both handsets have no issues scrolling, panning around, or zooming with ease while surfing the internet. Sony, however, just uses Chrome. That comes with Android Jelly Bean, which is not the fastest rabbit in the hat and doesn't support Adobe Flash, whereas the HTC browser even has this handy on and off button here for the times when you run across a site that needs Flash. The One and the Z Sport integrated baseband radios that support LTE networks were available, but also 42.2 megabits per second, HSPA plus downloads, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 4.0, assisted GPS, DONA, NFC, the works on both handsets. The HTC One has this added advantage of an infrared beamer at the top though, that allows you to control the TVs and set-top boxes around you directly from the phone. The galleries on both the HTC One and Xperia Z are in the usual grid format with thumbnail preview of your pics and video, and support basic image editing directly from the interface itself, both on the HTC One here and on the Xperia Z, with a bunch of settings for crop resize, red eye reduction, adding effects, and so on. Pinching on the tiled grid if you have more photos on the HTC One. Just sifts through the thumbnails chronologically as an alternative to scrolling, whereas on the Xperia Z, pinching can zoom the thumbs down to a single picture, preview, or back up to the tiled thumbnail grid. Sony uses its famed Walkman branding for the music player and has graced it with this pretty minimalistic interface that goes out of your way visually when you listen to something. The Xperia Z sports equalizers and sound modes adjustments directly from the music player interface itself, whereas we only have Beats audio on the HTC One when you plug in the headphones or are listening to music through the dual speaker system at the front. But as you can hear very well, the loudspeakers on the HTC One are amplified and pump out strong and clear beats in stereo, whereas the traditional single speaker on the rear that the Xperia Z has sounds somewhat muffled and distorted. Its volume is now set higher than the HTC One, which is set at a minimum, and you can still hear the difference. Both handsets play 1080p videos with ease, but the Xperia Z sports all popular formats support out of the box, whereas you'll be slightly inconvenienced having to download a third-party app to watch DivX vids on the HTC One here. Sony Xperia Z sports a 13 megapixel Exmor RS camera sensor, whereas HTC put its foot down and ended the megapixel war with the so-called UltraPixel camera. It's a roughly 4 megapixel in-count module, but with optical image stabilization, and has 2 micron pixels that are twice larger than the ones on the Xperia Z. The interfaces that from these camera modules are intuitive and easy to use on both handsets, with numerous scene modes and color effects as well. Sony Xperia Z has a bit of an advantage in scene selection here, offering separate ones even for shooting food or pets if you're willing to bother. Both handsets have the still and video shutter keys on one and the same screen, so you don't have to constantly switch back and forth. HTC, however, offers more exotic ways to spice up your footage, like the Zoe software that automatically merges pics, videos and music with special effects for one memorable collage. The photos from the Xperia Z come out a mixed bag. It sometimes produces very good details and sometimes all gets lost in noise reduction and processing. The color saturation and contrast are higher than in reality, but not to the point of gaudiness. The HTC One, on the other hand, produces a more natural color representation and often captures as much detail as the Xperia Z, despite the much lower megapixel count. We also didn't notice any glaring white balance or exposure measurement emissions from any of the handsets. They perform fine in that respect. Indoors, the Z performs well, capturing enough light to tell the details and doesn't overexpose the bright spots as magnificently as your average handset. The HTC One, however, has the natural advantage of an optical image stabilization mechanism inside that allows slower shutter speeds without blur, thus taking in more light, and the night scenes look as if they're taken on a cloudy afternoon compared to the Z. It does overexpose the light sources somewhat, sometimes to the point of a strong halo effect around anything bright. In video recordings, the HTC One definitely has an advantage. While both phones shoot 1080 video with 30 frames per second and are able to do so in HDR mode, the optical image stabilization mechanism inside the One makes us wish every flagship came with one. It produces smooth, shake-free footage with distinct highlights and excellent sound in all circumstances. All in all, it shouldn't be a tough pick between the HTC One or the Xperia Z for you. Sony's flagship might look a bit rough around the edges compared to the sleek aluminum one, but there's a perfectly good reason for that. The waterproof chassis will be a godsend for many a careless or outdoorsy owners, and it is actually easier to hold and operate with one hand with these rubberized sides. If you're the type that babies their handset though, the HTC One will offer a better screen, faster processor, this stellar audio experience and better call quality, an IR blaster at the top, and superior video capture on top of what the Xperia Z delivers. Both handsets cost around the same and are likely to keep value in a similar manner, so it mostly depends on whether you need the elements proofing of the Z or the extra features of the One. This was a video comparison between the Sony Xperia Z and the HTC One from PhoneArena. For more information about these and other handsets, you can visit us at phonearena.com.